The most common question I've seen asked about DHPT is E1 or S1, and there's a lot that can go into it. And I myself was having a hard time deciding until making this video and doing the math at the end. So let's go over it and see if I can help you at all. His S1 gives 36 damage % to his bondmate, gives himself more attack for stronger shields and a slightly larger attack buff, as well as giving him the ability to heal and effectively remove the weakness of shielders. His E1 gives an SP every time he ults, making his SP generation pretty much exactly like Gallagher's, as well as giving 18% res pen to the bondmate. The E1 gives more damage, even on a carry without a crazy amount of damage % and even with a small amount of res pen already on the team, like 20%, the best they can do is be equal. The light cone does actually provide 24 of the damage % to the whole team though, but while that's nice, it's not generally enough to make a difference, and there aren't very many teams where it really matters nowadays anyway. If you're running something like Herta, Anaxa, Tribi, and don't want to run Hyacinth for some reason, it will be good though. The main things with the light cone are its cost and utility. On average, it should only take 65 pulls versus the just under 90 that it takes to get a character on average. That's around 25% less pulls. The biggest deciding factor though, well, beyond more personal things, like how much you dislike using an off-path cone, buying the battle pass, or how much you hate 50/50s, is the utility. S1 gives a large boost to your survivability. People have been consistently recommending E1 over it from what I've seen, because once you sustain enough, more sustain does nothing, and he does generally currently sustain enough at base. So just take the slightly more damage from his E1. But with how the game has been going with a lot of attack inflation and now anomaly arbitration, I think it's fair to be worried about it. He is fine, and the extra sustain from it is unnecessary generally for now, but if it ever isn't, then what is he even doing? His one job is keeping you alive, so if he ever has trouble with that, it doesn't really matter how much damage he gives you. And who knows how long it will be until he comes back? That's how they get you. It wouldn't at all be an issue if he was back in 4 patches. 6 months, like most new characters, but they deliberately set the precedent with ratio that it can be a very long time until a free character reruns. That's why Rappa hasn't rerun, for example. It's obvious she won't sell a lot, so it's worth a lot more for them to sacrifice her rerun to create FOMO. Just keep her locked up, and now every other potentially unpopular or free character that comes out, people have to wonder, when will they ever even be back? So, if you miss out on the E1, and he takes ages to rerun, you just lose some damage. Not so bad, there's a million other areas it can be made up for. FOMO makes a bigger difference to the S1. If you end up needing it and can't get it, then not being able to sustain enough is a much bigger problem for him, and it still gives him some damage anyway. All that to say, not having enough sustain from your character dedicated to sustaining is a bigger issue for them than not giving you enough damage. So, can the E1 help with that too? If you use the skill points that E1 gives to help his own sustain by using his skill, how close to S1 are his shields? Well, I did some math. I'll put all of it and my assumptions on screen. I based it on him getting a 2-turn ult and him taking 13 turns rather than using action value to base it on and then having to work out speed and blech. Using the skill points from his E1 will also help with him getting a 2-turn ult, but I didn't account for that either just to keep it simple. I don't think it should be enough to let him switch to an attack rope anyway without a fair amount of additional enemy hits. But in instances where the E1 would allow a 2-turn ult with an attack rope, while S1 doesn't, then E1 could be further ahead. as you can hopefully see, assuming I've shown it clearly, using his skill more with E1 while using an off-path light cone gives 25,000 shielding over the course of his 13 turns, while S1 gives a total of 24,000, including the healing from his light cone. Being able to heal in addition to shielding of course can have some additional value, allowing you to recover in case anyone's shields break, but you're also more likely to waste it by overhealing unless things are going really bad or the enemy has some kind of gimmick that gets around shields, but only occasionally because otherwise why are you bringing a shielder? But also you can waste shields by going over his cap of 3 skills worth of shields, and S1 makes that much less likely by raising that cap. So both can kind of lose values to getting capped out. And so you can quite clearly see that his E1 can also still give a large amount of value to his sustain if you use the resources that it generates on himself. Except you get the choice with E1, in addition to its higher base damage buff. On top of that, his E2 then doubles the amount of shielding that his ult gives, as well as also giving a good amount of damage. I won't compare how much damage his E2 gives versus his S1, because it's quite difficult and can vary quite a bit, and will change in the future depending on the kinds of buffs future supports give, and the base multipliers of future DPS. But I will say it is more fun seeing and getting his dragon attack more often. So, overall, while E1 costs like 30% more pulls, it generally, in most cases, gives more than 30% more damage buffing than his signature, while also still increasing his sustain by a similar amount if you need it to. And if you don't, then the SP can result in even more damage. Barring any kind of need for healing from your shielder, his E1 really is just better. And even E2 S0 is probably better than E1 S1. I was leaning towards getting his S1 myself because I was feeling all of the extra factors. I hate 50/50s, don't want to use an off-path cone, and I had FOMO over his sustain getting weaker in future. But now, well, I actually might hold off entirely, because I should actually just be saving, and E1 is more expensive. So, even if no one watches this, at least making it has hopefully saved me some pulls. Thank you so much for watching, hopefully this helps you make any kind of decision. Until next time, bye.